Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It is day 2 of the Great Bead Extravaganza. We are so glad to be here with you today. And today we are featuring our guest presenter, Lauren DeVous of the Needlepoint Clubhouse. So, Lauren is going to be sharing some awesome techniques with us today, and I will let her tell us all about it.
Hi, guys. I'm Lauren DeVous with the Needlepoint Clubhouse. You can find me at Sequin Lala Stitches on Instagram and the Needlepoint Clubhouse at STL Needlepoint on Instagram. The Clubhouse is a full-service needlepoint shop, so we do all kinds of things, but I've kind of become known in the needlepoint industry for being a huge beader. And so I found out about the Bead Place and had to go in there and met Abby, and we started chatting, and here we are. So I thought I would share with you guys about beading on needlepoint. So the first thing I wanted to show you was how to needlepoint. So some of you may or may not know what needlepoint is, but typically needlepoint is hand painted canvas. I can show you here too. Actually,
Lauren,
my hand
on your hand cam.
Yeah, sorry. No, it's okay. I'll show right here. So
Okay.
typically is needlepoint is like hand painted canvas that you stitch with thread. So if any of you have been cross stitchers, you might know it as a half cross, but that's sort of like the basic needlepoint stitch. It's also on woven mesh. I don't know if you can see that. So there's a couple different sizes of mesh, which again, if you're beading, depends on what size bead you'll need. So there's typically 18 mesh, which is what I have here in my hand, and then 13 mesh. And 13 mesh is bigger holes. That means there's 13 stitches per inch, and 18 mesh is 18 stitches per inch. Abby, why don't you go to my hand cam for just 1 second? So I just want to show you guys a couple of things first. So there's 2 different types of needlepoint stitches. The first is continental, where you either just go horizontally in a line or vertically in a line. And the other one is basket weave. You're kind of working diagonally across your canvas like that. But basically all of the basic stitches go from essentially the bottom left corner to the top right corner. Basket weave is a little bit better. I'm not going to get into the weeds of why it's better at this point, but it just like kind of makes your canvas look a little nicer in the end. And it ends up looking prettier, like a prettier result. But either one is totally fine. So I thought I would just take a couple minutes and show you what I mean with just like our basic stitch. So we use tapestry needles for the most part with needlepoint, which is just like a rounded blunt edge needle. And this just happens to be like a silk wool blend I have here, but you can stitch with a whole bunch of different things. So like I said, you kind of go from the lower left across an intersection of this woven canvas to the top right. And if you're going, doing the continental stitch, which again is just straight lines, you're either going up or down like this in a row. Or again, you could also go horizontally. If you're doing basket weave, again, you're sort of going diagonally across the canvas. So if you stitch one here, then we have what we call poles, which is where I'm at right now is a pole, where the vertical thread of the canvas is going on top of the horizontal thread. And then there's we call steps or ladders, where the horizontal thread of the canvas is going across the vertical thread. So if you're doing basket weave, the thing you need to remember is going down the poles and up the ladder. So this is basket weave. You're kind of working diagonally, but both kind of use the same basic stitch. Both of these are called tent stitches, and it's sort of like the introductory stitch in needlepoint. So not going to get too deep in the weeds on this, but I just wanted to show you guys what this looked like before I got into the beading. So now for the fun part, right? The beads. So I want to show you a few. Like I said, I am kind of known as a huge beader in the needlepoint world. I love to bead. I want to teach you guys a few different techniques for beading. But first, I'm going to show you a few things I've beaded. I've beaded on my needlepoint. So the first is my daughter's stocking. So I stitched this whole stocking, but as you can see, I did her name in beads here. I also added some sequins. There's sequins on the background. I beaded all of these banners, and this is what's called reverse tent beading. I beaded these candles and the flames, and then of course these trees. So lots and lots of beads on there. This pine cone that I did is called messy looped beading, which I'll show you guys how to do this as well, but I don't know if you can see here, but there's basically loops of beads, and that's how I made this pine cone, which is very fun. And then there's also brick beading, which is another technique I'm going to teach you, but I don't know if you can tell in this, there's actually beads all throughout here. I'm a big Halloween person, so I love any kind of Halloween canvas. Those are some fun things, like I said, you could do with the beads. Let me pull my canvas back here. So we sold little anything you need to bead kits. And Abby, if you could show my face cam really fast. So these are on our website and we tagged it. So if you get one of these kits, basically everything you need to do this project I'm about to show you is in this kit. So what you get besides this little storage box here is an 8-inch square canvas that's blank, tacks and stretcher bars. That is sort of how you keep your canvas taut. Like if you think about cross stitch and a hoop or embroidery with a hoop, that's sort of our version of the hoop. You get clear beading thread, my favorite tulip beading needles, a bead sticky mat, which is a lifesaver, and then of course 2 different sizes of beads. So in needlepoint, primarily you use size 11 beads and size 14, 15 beads. So we sell Sundance beads here. There's lots of different kinds, but that is what's in this little kit, and that's how I made the little tag I'm about to show you. I also just got a font out of our essentials book that we sell, which is like basically a font book that shows you how to do any kinds of fonts. Did my initials, and then I beaded it. So there's a million things you can do. Like I said, there's a million different like hand painted canvases. I just grabbed a couple little ones because the 2x3 is a really popular size for some of our self-finishing things. So you could put it in a little luggage tag, you could put it in a wallet, or even like a little photo frame. So a lot of these smaller ones I grabbed can do the same thing. But again, like I said, needlepoint's typically hand painted, and you can do a lot with it. But
Lauren, can I pop in a second to let friends in chat know that I have just linked the fabulous collection that you and have put together on needlepointclubhouse.com. So if you guys go to either the link that we've added in chat on the YouTube streams and the Facebook streams, you can click that link directly, or if you are watching on our Instagram stream, you can just go to needlepointclubhouse.com and then click the Great Bead Extravaganza collection, and Lauren and her team have put together all the things that you need, and that's what she was just showing you.
That's right. So I just want to see, like, what are you doing? Well, that's kind of a little bit what I'm doing. But now let's get to the good stuff, right? So Abby can go back to my hand cam here. So in this little like luggage tag, like I said, I just did my initials. And this like hot pink beading is brick beading, and then the light pink beading is reverse tent stitch beading. Let me move this a little bit. It's better. Now, typically you want to use either a clear beading thread or a beading thread that matches whatever color beads you're using. For the sake of this demonstration, I just chose a darker beading thread so you guys could see it a little bit easier, and a thread that was not the same color as my beads, but typically you do want to do either clear or match your bead. So the next thing I do is I double my beading thread, and there's a few techniques that you need it to be doubled, which I'll show you in a second. But it also just gives your beads a little bit more security when you put them on that canvas. So like I said, the first one I'll show you is this, what we call reverse tent stitch beading. So up here, I kind of showed you like either if you're going continental or basket weave, the stitches basically go from lower left to upper right. So if you want a bead to lay in that same direction, you need to reverse it. Also, I don't know if I just said this or not, but I'll say it again just because it can't hurt. But for this reverse tent beading, you are going to want to use the size 14/15s on 18 mesh or size 11 on 13 mesh. And that's a general good practice. There are a few instances where you might want to go bigger than that I will tell you in a second, but that's what we're talking about here. So if you see, if I do my right, so I put a bead on my needle, and these are the tulip long needles. I like these because they kind of help you scoop up the beads a little bit better, but I put a bead on my needle. If I'm going to go the same direction as a regular stitch, so if I go from lower left to upper right, the bead sort of lays in the opposite direction. Oops, got a little knot here. Uh-oh, I messed up already. It's not a good sign. There we go. So you can kind of see the bead lays going this way. Hope you guys
Lauren, able to bring that a little bit closer to the camera. Just especially in the beginning, I just want them to be able to see that as clear as day. And of course you can bring it back down, but I'm just hoping you can bring that up just a little bit. If not, no big deal. It's clear. Oh, there we go.
Hold on, let me do a few adjustments here.
Yeah, and then it'll find focus. Thank you. Oh, there we go, right there.
Okay, that's right for you guys.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's okay. I just want to you guys to be able to see here. So like I said, I went from lower left to upper right, but my bead is pointing this direction, which isn't like that big of a deal. But if you're doing beading like this and you want your beads to go the same directions as your stitches, you just have to reverse it. So I'm gonna, if I come up here and go from lower right, let me pick up a bead. Easier said than done. My bead mat is extra sticky today. Okay, so pick up a bead and go from lower right, to upper left. Your bead then looks like it's facing, I don't know if you guys can see that, facing that direction. So it's facing the direction of your stitches. So this is the same thing. And if you're doing a big chunk of beading, like how I did here, or like I did on my daughter's stocking, you can also do the same methods, either basket weave or continental, to get like a bigger chunk of beading, like if you want a whole section of beading. So I can continue down this row, going like that. Can you guys see this better now, Abby?
If you could bring it up just a little bit, I think it'll be easier for us to see, but it's pretty clear.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of continuing on like that. And that's sort of like, this is the basic regular stitch. So like I said, if I'm doing a big chunk of beading or a larger area, this is what I do. Now there's another way to bead like this that's called lasso beading. And I do this if I am doing like one random bead. So for instance, if I can shimmy this stocking back up here.
Hey, Lauren, do you have a darker bead? Our friend Sherry in chat asked if you might have darker beads. Might be able to see it a little better.
If you give me a minute, yes. Hang on one second. Actually, there might be one right behind me.
Awesome, thank you. So guys, while Lauren's grabbing those beads, if you wouldn't mind doing us a big favor and putting some hearts in chat for Lauren, who is joining us as our guest presenter during the Great Bead Extravaganza. She is a fabulous artist. She works at the Needlepoint Clubhouse, also in the St. Louis area. You can find her on Instagram at Sequin Lala Stitches, and you can shop supplies for this project at needlepointclubhouse.com.
All right, guys, let's try this again here. Okay, let's see if these blue beads are better. You guys see that a little better? Let's try to do dark thread and light beads. You can see the difference of that. But
yeah, it looks better.
Okay.
Thank
you. Yeah, no problem. I'll get into the bigger beads in a second here too, so that might be helpful. But basically, let me try that with this bigger hot pink one. So when you are doing like one random bead, like I was about to say, let me grab my my daughter's stocking. So for instance, one like on these trees, how I kind of place beads randomly in there, you do what's called a lasso technique. And that is where you place the bead on. And in this technique, it really does not matter which way your bead is facing, because you're going to kind of get it in line. But you go either from lower right to upper left. And this is why it's important to double your beading thread. But then you're going to come back. You're going to come back in the lower left, and sort of split that thread. So you take your two threads, and you kind of want to split it, and you go up to the upper right, and as you're pulling that down, you want to make sure that the two sides of the thread are going on either side of your bead. And what that does is it almost just gives it a little, you can kind of see it there. It just gives it a little bed and a little resting place, and that makes sure that bead is not going to go anywhere. It's more secure. So you can even see this one is not wiggling that much, whereas this one, I can shove all around. So anytime you have one singular bead by itself, the lasso method is the way to do it. So let me see with the darker beads. Just wanted to see if the bigger bead would help. I'll try again with the darker bead. So placing your bead on the needle, and again, you can kind of, you can start going right to left or left to right. Either way, doesn't matter, just reverse the steps. So in this case, I'm gonna go lower right, and I just went upper left. So now I'm gonna come back here to lower left and split the thread. And I kind of tend to like put my finger on the bead. I didn't want to do that the first time so you guys can see what I'm doing. But if I put my finger on the bead, splitting that thread, and put my needle down, it kind of helps guide it, the two different sides of the thread, to go in the opposite directions and make your little bed that your bead sits in. The other thing you can do if you are doing one singular bead, and this will kind of change the way your bead lays, is doing like what we call cross stitch beading. And you'll see, so I'm going to start with this one going lower left to upper right. And then you're going to come back up on the right hand side. Can you guys see better with these hot pink beads? They're bigger, so I thought it might be better. Let me know, I can get a bigger size and a darker color. So you're going to come back up the lower right, go back through the bead, and then down in the lower left. That's another way to make sure that bead is extra secure, but you see it kind of makes the bead sit straight up as opposed to diagonal. So sometimes you want that look, and sometimes you don't. Again, if it's just one singular bead, it kind of doesn't matter. But if it's a big chunk of beads like this, you may not want that. You may want them to go diagonally so they sit in line better. But either way, that is how you do that. Either the lasso or the cross stitch is how I do just one singular bead. So kind of back to this. One of my favorite techniques is this brick beading. And I like this because it's easy, it's quicker, and it gives you pretty nice full coverage without having to bead every single intersection. So the only one trick with brick beading is you typically want to go up a size from your mesh size. So like normally you would use a size 14, 15 bead on 18 mesh. Well, if you're going to brick bead, you want to size up to a size 11. So basically what you do with brick beading, brick is the name of a needlepoint stitch. And that is, I knew I forgot something. I forgot to grab my book to show you what that looks like on a graph. But basically what this means, so like I said, in the previous beading methods, we went across an intersection. And this method, we're going to go across basically a hole, and that bead is going to lay nicely right in that hole. So I'm going to come up, grab a bead. Like I said, instead of going across the intersection, I'm going to go over a hole. And that bead kind of lays nicely in that trough. Then I don't do one right next door. I'm going to skip a row, grab another one. Oops. And then in your next row, you're just kind of filling the gaps. So this is what I did over here on this hot pink, and it's painted hot pink underneath, so it gives it a nice full coverage. So again, when you fill in the gaps in your next row, the beads all line up next to each other, like nice little like toy soldiers, and it gives you a really nice looking like full coverage effect. Like I said, this is one of my favorite beading methods because A, it's fast, so you're doing one bead on 4 intersections instead of 4 beads on 4 intersections. But it just looks really nice and neat, I think. So I love brick beading. Like I said, I did it on my little poison bottle top. So you can see that. That's another brick beading where, again, they all like line up really nicely. And so if you are beading a big area, this is a really good technique to use because it goes much faster and they line up much nicer. So I love, love, love this technique. I do it a lot for eyes. I mean, you name it. I love, like if you're like, for instance, if I am beading, I'm beading this little eagle eye here, I would definitely brick bead probably any of these colorful sections you could brick bead. Now on that little bow, which I've lost that canvas already, or for instance, like if I was going to bead the words on this Oregon piece, I might not want to brick bead the letters because there's some of these sections here that are only one stitch deep. So if you brick bead, you'd basically be doing every other, which isn't going to look as nice. Like in that instance, I might reverse 10th stitch those words. But the brick beading is great for any areas that are a little bit larger because it's a little faster and a little easier. So again, you are basically skipping every other hole. So I'll show you this one more time. So you come up, you're going to go over 2 threads or 1 hole, and that bead just lays kind of nicely in that little nest of the hole. Then you're going to skip a row. So I'm not going to go here. I'm going to go up here to another one. And then in your next row, you're going to kind of fill in the gap. So going down just 1 row and filling the hole in between these 2 beads. And then skip this row, go to the one opposite and do it again. So this I would say is a great like entry level method because like I said, it's quicker, it's easier, and it takes up more space. Another method that I absolutely love to do is what's called messy beading. And there's 2 different styles of messy beading. There's messy looped beading, and then there's just straight up messy beading. So messy beading, like straight up messy beading, is you're going to put a bunch of beads on your needle, and it depends on what you're doing as to what size they are, what color they are. For instance, I've seen this a lot on Christmas trees. Like if someone's going to bead an entire Christmas tree, you just put a random amount of beads on your needle, and you're kind of going to string them. But in messy beading, you kind of want some to stand up, kind of like that. You want some to be more flat. And then the next section, I might take the beads and go the opposite way. So let me string up a bunch of beads here. Oh my gosh, my bead mat is like so super sticky. I like can't even get beads on it. Okay. Okay, so again, kind of a random assortment of beads there. And go the opposite way, and you kind of layer it up. So this is a good method for the center of flowers, Christmas trees, bushes, hedges, anything that can kind of look messy, random, organic. Like that's a really good way to do it. That's just regular messy beading. Messy looped beading is something different. So the looped beading is you're essentially going to make a loop with your beads, just like I did on this pine cone. I love this method for pine cones. Again, this is great for flowers, trees, but it gives a really, really nice effect. So the key thing here, I like to mix sizes when I do this. The size of the bead matters a little bit less. You could even size up, but the most important thing here is you want an odd number of beads on your needle, because when you make the loop, inevitably that odd bead is going to come up in the center, and that's what you're going to see. If it's an even number of beads, you're tending to more see the beading thread, which is not what you want to see. You want to see that pretty bead, right? So typically what I do is 5s. You see you've got 5 beads on the needle. On this pine cone again, almost this entire pine cone is loops of 5. Only at the very tippy top, I gotta focus there, did I do a few loops of 3, and again, only because it was so small. But depending on the area, you might want to do 5, you might want to do 7, but as long as it's an odd number. So I've got 5 beads on there, you can see that. And I'm going to go down in the same hole that I came up in. And when you do that, it makes this nice little loop that stands up. And again, I kind of chose that dark beading thread for a reason. So you can see that the bead is standing at attention and not the beading thread. And then you just layer up your loop. So for instance, on that pine cone, I did not necessarily do every hole. I just kind of did it where it looked like I needed to. But if you're messy loop beading an area and you realize like, oh shoot, I should have put a loop there and I didn't, you can always go back and add it. So it's a really forgiving way to bead. Again, there's my 5 beads on my needle. I'm going to go down in the same hole. And you can stack them together. This is like a really, really fun way to do it. You can also, if you want to get a little bit more beads on your needle, let's see here. If you want to be a little bit bigger, sorry guys, my bead mat is requiring a little bit more love here today. Okay, so that I've got 7. And I'm purely doing that just to make a little bit bigger loops. I'm going to go down in the same hole. To make my loop, so you can see it's a little bit bigger loop, but you can also tack this down. So if I want it to lay more flat, I can kind of come back up. Inside the loop. And then go around the loop and come down, which this in needlepoint is basically called a lazy daisy stitch. And it makes that loop lay flat against the canvas. So that's another really good one for flower petals or anytime you want to see kind of a circle in beading, you can do that. You can also do string beading. So I ran out of thread here. Let me rethread my needle. String beading is good. And I'll show you on this while I'm trying to do 2 things at once here. So this line right here and this line up here, these are obviously bugle beads, and those are little seed beads. That's primarily what we use in needlepoint is the seed beads. There are lots of other kinds of beads that we use, but these bugle beads and seed beads are the primary ones. But so I just strung, you can kind of see it moves a little bit more. You can kind of see I strung a whole bunch of beads on my needle, and then once I did that, I tacked it down in a couple places so it wouldn't go anywhere. The reason why I did that in this instance was because there's lots of other stitching on here that I didn't really want to interfere with. So I didn't want to try to like go up and down holes. I also wanted them all to lay in this way. So this is an instance where you might want to do a string bead, where again, you just put as many beads on your needle as you want. And same with this. I wasn't quite sure. I knew I wanted to use some of these bugle beads, but all bugle beads wouldn't fit. So I knew I had to get some seed beads in there. So I strung them and kind of kept laying it down to see where, you know, what I needed the length to be, and then just tacked it down. So you can do this too. It just kind of depends on exactly what you're doing. That is a good thing to do on trees. So for instance, on these trees, I just individually beaded, but I could have also done a string of beads and, you know, done it that way and then tacked them down, as opposed to some of these other beading methods. Sometimes I use multiple methods in the same project. So just to show you this really quickly, whoops. So these roof beads here, I actually brick beaded. So again, I went over that hole and the bead is just nestled into the hole. And you can see they're sort of all standing up at attention. They're not on an angle. So that is, I did brick beading here. And then down here, I just did messy beading. So kind of random strings of beads, some going this direction, some going that direction, some on top of each other, some not. Because I wanted this to look more rough and like icicles. And then down here is some lasso beading because they're, again, individual beads. So that's how you can use like kind of multiple different bead techniques on one project. Let me bring this back here, show you guys. So what I did here is I just took my little blank canvas and I just drew a 2x3 rectangle because I thought it would be good to put it in that little luggage tag. But you could do really any size and then put my initials on it because it's kind of an easy entry level project. So that's why I put all these things in that collection. If you guys want to start somewhere and maybe you've never stitched before, I'm happy to put the instructions in there as well. Just let me know if you're a righty or lefty. There's also really great references on YouTube of how to begin needle pointing, or you of course can go into a local needlepoint shop in your area. We have a free class the first Saturday of every month on how to needlepoint. And then really the sky's the limit. Like I could just kind of show you to do the two most basic stitches, but there's a ton of different things you can do. Okay, so I've got my needle back threaded up here. I want to show you another fun thing you can do. And however big this is, or however many beads this is, depends on how big you want it. But this is sort of like string beading and looped beading together. So I'm going to put on a bunch of beads here. And I have this little invention on my thing. I should have showed you this too. I think I put it in the collection. This is called an easy beader. So it's really great. It's a magnet on the back, just like this is a magnet, like to hold your needles. We call them needle minders. This is essentially a bead needle minder. And this little mat here is sticky, and you can put your beads on it and they stick, and it usually makes it easy to scoop them right on up. But maybe it's because I'm live trying to teach you guys. They're not scooping quite so easily. My bead mat is really extra sticky today, which is a good thing. Okay, let's see if this is enough. You can also kind of see the difference here if you're looking on my little bead mat. These hot pink beads are the size 11, and these light pink and blue beads are the size 14, 15. So you can kind of see the size difference there. Like I said, I like to size up when you're brick beading. But I just strung a whole bunch of beads on my needle there. And I'm going to go back down in the same hole. And it makes one giant loop. But again, I can then tack this down. So I'm going to come back up through my loop. Tack it on the outside so it lays flat to my canvas here. And again, you get kind of a little circle. I can even tack it in a couple of places. But then, actually maybe I will. I like doing this when I'm about to show you for like flower centers, or anytime you have like a little, like maybe a polka dot on your canvas, or you just want to add a little flair. This is a fun thing to do. So you want to tack it down a couple places so your circle lays flat. And normally I would like mix up the colors here. So let's just say I wanted like a hot pink surround, and maybe I'm going to fill it with the blue beads. There's my little circle, right? So then I'm going to come back in here. Let me grab a whole bunch of blue beads here. And you can do that sort of straight up messy beading. So I grabbed just several blue beads, and I'm going to go down across, and I can keep making these messy passes until my circle is filled with the blue beads. I am a very, like I said, I love to bead. I also love sparkly threads. So anytime I can like add this type of embellishment on a canvas, I really do. In fact, I have a stack of projects at home that are done being like stitched with thread that are just waiting for beads, because any opportunity I get to use a bead, I love to do it. That's why I was excited to go to find the Bead Place and to meet Abby, because she had a lot of what we call doodads, but I think she calls charms. Like I said, I love Halloween, so I bought a bunch of skeletons and pumpkins, and because you can add those types of things to your needlepoint as well. So a lot of these things that already exist in bead shops that you guys may be used to, you can absolutely incorporate them into needlework. So I'm just going to get those three there just so you kind of see what I'm talking about. But then there you go. There's like a little filled circle It's very three-dimensional. And you did sort of that looped beading and then regular messy beading to fill it in, which is really, I think, fun and cute. So yeah, those are like some of the, if you want to show me, show my face cam again, Abby, those are some of the fun different types of beads and beading methods. When I was talking about the charms, what I was talking about here is like, for instance, on this, I just did, where's my, here we go. I just did a ribbon bow on here. But whoops, here we go. Can't find my camera. I bought a little wreath charm at Abby's place I could put there, or you can get like a whole bunch of different things you can do on your canvas. Those are the main types of beading. Like I said, most people do. There's lots of other things you can do with beads, but those are sort of like the entry level places to do it, or places to start. Any questions or any like techniques you want me to show you guys again? I'm happy to do that. Just seeing there's some comments here. But yeah, that's really how I like to do it. And I also like the brick beading again because it's fast. So that little luggage tag I did on my Handcam, that took me just a few hours to do. So in the scheme of needle pointing, like some big projects like stockings can take people years and years. But brick beading, if you brick bead something, it definitely goes a little quicker. And it adds a lot of sparkle and fun and shine. So that's why I like to bead and do fun things with it. But yeah. Abby, is there anything I'm missing or I'm forgetting to tell people?
Well, Lauren, first off, I just want to say we have well over 120 people watching on our Facebook and YouTube, and even more folks watching on Instagram. So speaking of Instagram, I just want to share with our viewers that you do so much content on Instagram. So while we're waiting for those questions to come in, why don't you talk to our friends about where they can find you and how they can watch you on Instagram?
Yeah, so I personally am Sequin Lala Stitches on Instagram. Again, Sequin Lala was a name that kind of followed me from my fashion days. So when I made it a Stitch Instagram, it was Sequin Lala Stitches. Like I said, I love anything shiny. But you can follow Needlepoint Clubhouse on STL Needlepoint on Instagram. We do a lot of lives. Like we do a live every Tuesday where I show off finishing. So for instance, that stocking, someone will stitch it. We'll stitch that canvas like how I have here. It'll, I've now stitched this, but then I turn it in to make the finished product. So this will be a 3D house, but we also do the finishing part. So taking your canvas and turning it into an ornament, a pillow, a stocking, you name it. That's how we do it. I also have a YouTube channel. So I am Sequin Lala Stitches on YouTube as well. And that YouTube is primarily stitch tutorials, different things you can do with your needlepoint. So that's what I do there. If people don't use Instagram, we do post on Facebook occasionally as well. Needlepoint Clubhouse does. So you can watch us there, but we are primarily doing things on Instagram. The starter kit will come with, let me grab this here. If you put in the comments whether you're a righty or a lefty, it will come with this, how to do the basic needlepoint stitches. There are lots of books, and that is the one thing I forgot to grab, with a variety of different stitches in them. So I almost never at this point do that sort of basic tent stitch, which is what that diagram is. But I like doing what we call like decorative stitches. So you can see on my Handcam here, like this stitch on here, we like to call skip tent, where you're not necessarily skipping every hole, or on here, doing lots of fun things. So there's lots of books with different stitches. But like I said, just to get started, I would say if you are in an area that has a local needlepoint shop, that is always the best place to start. So there always should be someone there that can kind of help you through it, get you started. Or if not, I know there's a million videos on YouTube of how to do the basic stitches, as well as how to do some like decorative stitches too. And if you've ever done any cross stitch or embroidery, there are a lot of crossover things, those stitches that you can do on needlepoint as well, for sure.
Lauren, would you mind quickly explaining how to add thread if you run out?
Yeah, so one thing you want to do, actually, if you go, let me adjust my Handcam here for a second so you can see what I'm talking about.
Do you spotlight your Handcam?
What's that? Yes, if you don't mind. So I've made a giant mess on the back of here because I was kind of being wild. But once you're done, beading and your thread is out, I have a stand, so just flip my stand over, and you just want to run your needle. You can see this through some of your stitching. So in this case, I'm just going to run my needle, through there. And you can even do it a few times and knot it if you want. There is some old school, we call like the needlepoint police, who don't like knots in the back of your needlepoint, but we don't believe in needlepoint police around here. Things they do, it makes you happy, and then you just cut it. So cut that. When I'm beading, like I said, I like to double my thread. I do like to put a knot on the end of that thread. So then you just like thread up your needle. You want to tie a knot or a few knots, and then you can get started again. So that's how, and then flip over.
That stand is so cool.
Oh my gosh, this stand, I wish I could really talk to you for days and days about the stand. This is called a System 4 stand. This is the floor version. There's also a tabletop version, which has like a base that you set on a table, but the floor version comes with this part, and then the clamp is separate. Then this radius arm is separate too. The tabletop version comes with a radius arm, and then the table base stand, and then the clamp is separate. But why this is so amazing, other than it makes your life hands-free, so you can, do this. You could use both of your hands to do your stitching, but they're also lifetime warranted. So you can come back to my face cam, I think, Abby. So you can. Because they're teeth. They're sort of like teeth that fit together, all the pieces. So sometimes the teeth might wear down.
Yeah.
And you can send any of the parts in, and if they can't repair it, they'll give you a new part for free. So it is a game changer for sure if you do any kind of stitching.
That is so cool. So we have a question over on Instagram.
Yeah.
Girl with a Curl Needlepoint says, with brick beading, how do you handle the edges that isn't a full brick stitch? Do you add an extra bead or leave it open to the painted canvas?
That is a really good question. Let me see if I can get my hand cam really zoomed in so you can kind of see what she's talking about. And hi, Girl with a Curl. I love you so much. Thanks for watching. I'm going to be too zoomed in. I wanted to focus there. So I don't know if you can see right here on the edges is what she's talking about, and right up here. So most of the time I find, in fact, let me just take it off the stand. I feel like I will see it. That when you're doing a big mass of beading like this, you barely notice the edges. So if you even look from this far away, you really can't tell what we're talking about here. But if you zoom up really close here, you can see that will focus. Let me see if I get this to focus here. There's a few stitches here that aren't stitched, because if I had put another bead in there, it would have gone outside the painted area. So I tend to just leave those stitches as they are, because like I said, once you get a big mass of stitching in, you really can't tell. So that's kind of how I handle it. And that's really kind of a beauty is in the eye of the beholder situation. And that works if I do have any other needle pointers watching for regular brick stitch too. Sometimes when you do a stitch that's going diagonally, like for instance, my background stitch is going diagonally, and you have a straight stitch next to it, which the brick stitch is, sometimes there's a row that's empty that you can't decide, should I stitch or should I not? So sometimes if I can't tell, I'll put one stitch in, and if I like the look of it, great, I'll keep going. If I don't like the look of it, I know to just leave it empty. In fact, you can kind of tell in here it happened too, right? Like if you really look closely, like there could be a bead in here, but again, that would have gone outside the painted area in these places I'm pointing with my needle. But if you're really not looking for it, it really kind of blends together and is not so bad.
Awesome. Thank you. So
Yeah.
I haven't answered this question already because I know you touched on this, but Cynthia, does the starter kit come with a diagram on the mesh canvas?
It does not come with the diagram. It will come, like I said, if you tell me if you're righty or lefty, I will put in our beginner, like how to stitch instructions. It does not come with diagrams of what I showed you today. I have had a lasso bead on my YouTube channel. Or you can get, like if you're looking for like what to do, like the fonts, that there are like books that come with fonts. There's also books that come with a variety of different stitch suggestions in them. And I can add those after the fact to our little collection on our website. But most things are hand painted like this. And then you can just stitch or bead on top of it.
Awesome. So Pat says, does your store have any children's kits with easy stitches to practice or videos for kids projects?
We do. So we do sell children's kits, and typically, like I said, our most of our canvases used in needlepoint. I'm trying to find a 13 mesh. Here's a 13 mesh. Come in either 13 mesh, which let me actually put it here, which are, you can see that, like a little bit bigger holes, and then next to 18 mesh, which are smaller holes. So I know that's kind of hard to see on camera, but so 13 mesh is like, these two canvases are what I would say 95% of needlepoint is painted on. However, kids kits are usually on 10 mesh, so they're even bigger holes, easier for people to start, and even not just kids. I mean, adults, it might be easier to start on the bigger holes too. But so we've got those kits in stock always here. We do a kids camp once a year in the summer to teach kids, and then our free beginner class on Saturday is open to children as well. We actually had a couple of kids last week. No, I guess it was a few weeks ago now. I'm trying to think of what day it is. It's the end of the month already.
Yes.
We had a few kids this month in our beginner class as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Kate Richberg, one of our other presenters in the Great Bead Extravaganza, says, do you typically do a layer of needlepoint stitches and then a layer of beading over the top of that, so the needlepoint lies below the beading, or does the mesh lie below the beading?
That's a really good question. And the short answer is it really depends what you are doing. I would say for most things, I am not stitching underneath beading. When the exception to that rule is, like for instance, these Merry Christmas is like fully beaded. I did not stitch under that. However, when I added these sequins, which is kind of akin to beading in our world, I did stitch the sky underneath it and then added the sequins on top. Same with like the trees, right? So I stitched the tree and then added the beads on top, but I did not put a layer of stitching underneath this before I beaded on top of it. And I think if you're brick beading or like reverse tent beading, there's really not a need. But if you are doing like kind of a singular bead or something like that, sometimes you might want that to pop up. But so typically no, but it kind of depends on what you feel like.
Okay. So Sheila asks, what was the name of that stand that you showed us earlier?
That is called a System 4 stand. So System 4, like the number. Those are also on our website, and I can put that in our collection as well. So if you go to needlepointclubhouse.com, we have a great Bead Extravaganza website with a lot of the stuff I just showed, but I will add the stands and some of our stitch books to that collection as well.
And guys, I've just linked that collection in the chat below. So Lauren is going to add those items in. But before she does, or actually whenever, you can check out all the other cool items that Lauren has added to this collection to make your life a lot easier. So if you liked the tag that Lauren was showing earlier with her initials on it, there are just basically everything you need to do that. But one of the things that she showed earlier, if you're just joining us, was the leather luggage tag, which just slide your needlepoint in. And I just think that's so cool. What an awesome gift idea.
Yes, these are very cool. And these are what we call like self-finishing items in needlepoint. And basically you can see they have like a little 3M sticky on them, and you just peel off the sticky and you can put your needlepoint right in. We have wallets. These I just grabbed because they're the 2x3 size that I made my little tag. But we have handbags. We have jewelry boxes. There's little koozies, like can koozies. There's a million different like quote unquote self-finishing things for needlepoint as well. And then, or you like stitch a canvas, and then any local needlepoint shop, or you can send it to us to do it too, can make it into whatever that finished item is as well.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
So Kim would like to know, what do you use to paint the canvas?
Yes, it's a great question. So basically what you use are acrylic paints, like the basic acrylic paints you can get like at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, any like big box craft store. You do typically want to water them down just a touch, because as they come out of the bottle, they're a little thick and they might like fill some of these holes. But if you water it down just a touch, you can get it on the intersections and it won't fill up the holes quite as much. I also put in that collection, we have some paint pens, some like metallic paint pens that you can do on canvas as well. The only thing you want to avoid is like Sharpie, anything that's not meant for fabric, because again, when things are being finished, a lot of times they're blocked. So if they're like steam blocked or even sprayed with water blocked, Sharpie or other things that are not meant for fabric can run and can ruin your stitching underneath. So you want to kind of keep it to like acrylic paints or anything that's safe for fabric.
Oh, that's such a good tip, because the first thing that I would have thought to do is just doodle on it with Sharpie. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, yeah.
So Pamela would like to know, how long did it take you to do the Christmas stocking?
Well, okay, so I'm a very fast stitcher, and a lot of these are very decorative open stitches. So this did not take me very long. This took me about a month to do, but that's not normal. Like my son and my husband's Christmas stockings took me years, because again, I pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. But that I was having a lot of fun with my daughter, so I just whipped right through that one.
I would have guessed like 20 years or something.
Yeah.
That is just an incredible masterpiece.
Oh, thank you. And I'm sure you guys, no matter what craft you're like used to doing, people can relate to this. Like I am a person that has a million whips at a time. So I like to pick something up, put it down. You know, like I have, I don't feel like I have a lot of ADD in my like regular life, but I absolutely have needlepoint ADD where, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm sick of doing this. I want to do something else. Or I don't feel like beading today. I want to stitch today, but then I also feel like beading. So I kind of have a lot of things going at once, but, my daughter's stocking was one of those that just like struck me and I couldn't put it down. And so I flew right through.
That's awesome. So we have another question on Instagram from Girl Needlepoint. I'm late to the program. I do have a question regarding dyed versus non-dyed beads, especially on needlepoint. Is there a risk using dyed beads on your canvas over time with color transfer?
That's a good question. I've never done a ton with dyed beads, to be honest, but I would guess it's the same risk. I mean, all of our threads are dyed. So I think it depends on like the process they use to dye the bead and how color safe it is, and how, you know, I think more has to do with the process of dyeing. I'm not, I don't know. Long story short, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't imagine it would be too terrible because all of the threads are dyed as well. So
yeah, I would agree with that as someone who is, an expert in the beading field specifically. I would say that you would probably want to not get your items wet, but you probably wouldn't want to do that anyway. So just be careful if you're doing needlepoint on something with a lot of white threads or white beads around something that's like bright red.
right.
Just maybe
That's scary in general.
No.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things too. And I wore this bracelet on purpose. My friend made me a little sort of like Taylor Swift sort of style bracelet, but I wore this because it's got like a little plastic pony bead on it, right? So these are another fun thing to do in needlepoint, where you can actually cover a pony bead with thread or ribbon and put that on your canvas, and it looks like a berry or like the center of a flower or something, jingle bells. So that's like another really fun thing. I mean, there's a ton of things you can do with beads, but I kind of wanted to start with the basics, but that's a really fun one too.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a cool idea. And then also you can cover it with thread and then use it in your jewelry, or cover it with beads and just get super creative. So we have another comment from our friend Girl with a Curl Needlepoint. She says, Lauren isn't normal. She is a superwoman in the needlepoint industry. So you are getting a ton of positive comments, Lauren.
That's very nice.
So we will give you guys another few minutes to get a couple of or any of your last minute questions in. And then while we're waiting for those comments to come in, Lauren, do you have anything exciting coming up, either you personally that you'd like to share in the needlepoint world, or with the Needlepoint Clubhouse? Do you guys have fun classes or events?
Yeah, let me tell you about all that. But when you said you wrapping a bead to use it on your jewelry, you can't really tell actually on camera, but we have a lot of threads, that are really over dyed and variegated and change colors a lot. Why can't I find this camera? And that's why I think it would be really pretty if you're going to do something like that on jewelry, to use some of those over dyed threads. That just made my head go off when you said that. I love that idea.
So cool.
Yeah, so we are actually winding down on classes a little bit towards the end of the year. So we, other than our like free beginner classes, I teach a class called Beyond Basket Weave every Friday morning from 9 to 11. It's in person only, it's on Zoom, but where you've got those basic stitches down and you want to kind of expand your repertoire and stitches and beads and all that stuff, I teach that every week. Other than that, we are kind of done for the end of this year. However, next year, we had some technique classes this past year that people loved. So how to bead, how to do specialty knots, decorative stitches, all of those technique classes we did this past year, we're going to do again in 2025. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, just go to our website and search adventure classes, and the ones on the website will be over, but you can kind of see the descriptions of what those are and kind of stay tuned for 2025. We also bring in national teachers quite a bit to do what we call embellishment classes. So you might have a canvas like this, you know, and you say like, what would you do with it? What are some fun things I can do? And the teacher will kind of tell you what to do with your canvas, which is exactly what I do in Beyond Basket Weave every Friday, but it's a little bit more casual. We also do retreats every year. So I'm sure you guys have retreats in the bead world as well, where you kind of just get together with a bunch of very like-minded people and do the thing that you love. So we do a lot of that, and they are so fun. And I've been to a lot of retreats across the country, and I like to think ours are really, truly some of the absolute best. And then in terms of other exciting things, our shop owner, Megan, just bought a building. So early next year, I know, we are moving 2 miles down Manchester Road. So we're still in Manchester, just 2 miles east, to a much larger space. And she also bought the house behind the building to be like a little needlepoint Airbnb. So if you guys are coming in from around the country, you can stay in the Airbnb. So we are super, super excited about that. The house is actually up and running already, but the shop we're doing some construction, so that will be ready hopefully late winter, early spring next year.
That is so cool.
I know, it's really exciting.
So Pat asked, where are you located?
I am located in St. Louis, Missouri. So if you're familiar with St. Louis, our shop is in Kirkwood right now. Like I said, we're moving just a couple miles down the road to Rock Hill early next year, but right now we're in Kirkwood in St. Louis, Missouri.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we go, Lauren, could you tell everybody one more time where they can find you on all the socials and online?
Yes. So me personally, I am Sequin Lala Stitches on Instagram and YouTube. The Needlepoint Clubhouse is STL Needlepoint on Instagram. And our website is needlepointclubhouse.com. If you go to our website, I believe it's under new arrivals, you'll see a great bead extravaganza collection where I kind of put all the things that I just talked about. And as soon as I get off this Zoom, I will put in the stand and the stitch books too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. Well, to you that are watching and you are new to the Great Bead Extravaganza, we have another presentation coming up about a half hour from now. So make sure to watch the Great Bead Extravaganza YouTube channel for that. Also, you can find that presentation, our dear friend Christy Friesen. She'll be on the Great Bead Extravaganza Facebook page, and you will find her in the Great Bead Extravaganza Facebook group as well. Make sure to sign up for the Great Bead Extravaganza grand prize giveaway. Over $750 worth of gift certificates and like prizes to all of our presenters here. You can find the official giveaway link in the featured section, not only on the Facebook page, but also the Facebook group. Make sure to give Lauren and the Needlepoint Clubhouse some love, not only in the comments here, thanking her for her wonderful presentation, but also over on her social media, her Instagram, her YouTube. And if you are able to show the Needlepoint Clubhouse some support with purchases on their website, I'm sure they would appreciate that as well. Thank you so much, Lauren, for being here with us today. Do you have any final words for us before we head out?
No, just thank you so much for having me. This has been really, really fun, and I can't wait to come to your shop again. And hopefully you guys like this and want to give Needlepoint a try. So
awesome. Well, thanks so much. Everybody stay tuned for Christy Friesen. She will be up next. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.